the next property of d block element, that is the seventh property. Seventh property, magnetic property. Magnetic property. Magnetic property is again connected to the color. In what way we will see. When we say magnetic property, there are different types of magnetic substances like diamagnetic, paramagnetic, ferromagnetic. What are diamagnetic substance? The substance which gets slightly repelled. They get repelled by magnetic field. Substance which gets repelled by magnetic field. Paramagnetic, the substance which get attracted by magnetic field, and ferromagnetic are one which gets strongly attracted by magnetic field. These are the main three substances which we have to discuss under magnetic property. Now, what is the reason for the substance to behave in a different way? Diamagnetic substance, here if I say N as number of unpaired electrons, if N is the number of unpaired electrons, in diamagnetic substance N is 0. Number of unpaired electrons is 0. Whereas in paramagnetic substance, there will be a net number of unpaired electrons. Presence of unpaired electrons make a substance paramagnetic. Hence, which all substances are diamagnetic? Can we list out the substances which are diamagnetic? Say Cu plus 1. Is it diamagnetic or paramagnetic? Configuration is 3d 10 4s0. No unpaired electron. So, diamagnetic. Or zinc Zn2 plus. Configuration is 3d 10. Again, no unpaired electron. Scandium 3 plus. Configuration 3d 0. No unpaired electron. So, it is colorless. Titanium plus 4. 3d 0. Vanadium plus 5. 3d 0. These all are with the no unpaired electrons, all have paired or no electron in the d orbital. Then these all are diamagnetic. These examples you can even place under the salt solution having no color. Why? Again, the reason for color is presence of unpaired. If they do not have unpaired electron, they have to be colorless. So, these all are the diamagnetic substances and even colorless substances, or the salt of these to be considered as colorless and diamagnetic. Then few example for paramagnetic substance. Say some example for paramagnetic. Copper in the +2 state. What is the configuration? 3d 9. Does it have unpaired electron? Yes. Iron in the +2 state. 3d 6. Iron in the +3 state. 3d 5. So, these all are the paramagnetic substances. It's fine. So, some of the example, you can even have nickel in the +2 state, cobalt in the +3 state. Most of them are paramagnetic. Most of the d block elements are paramagnetic because they have one or more unpaired electrons. Only few examples you get for colorless and diamagnetic substance. Most of them are colored and paramagnetic substance. All paramagnetic substances you can place under the colored substances because they have unpaired electrons. Okay. Whereas this ferromagnetic substances, some elements like iron, cobalt and nickel, these metals, in these metals paramagnetism is highly pronounced. That means they get highly or strongly attracted by the magnetic field. Then they are placed under ferromagnetic substances. Okay, slight difference between paramagnetic and ferromagnetic. Paramagnetic substances are temporarily magnetized, whereas ferromagnetic substances are permanently magnetized. These are permanent magnets because here magnetic moment, if you consider magnetic moment of these elements will be aligned in a same direction. if these are the magnetic moment direction and this is the direction of magnetic field, say this is magnetic field by which the elements get or ions get attracted, and these are the magnetic moment, which are aligned in the same direction in ferromagnetic substance. This causes the substance to get strongly attracted by the magnetic field. The example are iron, cobalt and nickel. Here if these substances are heated to a certain temperature, then they turn into paramagnetic. Otherwise these substances are strongly magnetic, called as ferromagnetic, which is permanent magnetism. Like iron, if heated to around 6800 degrees Celsius, then it will lose its magnetism permanently. It turns into paramagnetic substance, and this temperature is called as Curie point. Curie point for iron. The temperature at which the ferromagnetic substance lose its permanent magnetism and turn into paramagnetic. Temperature at which the ferromagnetic substance lose its magnetic property, there is a permanent magnetism, and turn into paramagnetic substance is called as a Curie temperature or Curie point. That is regarding the iron. Here we have to learn the way of calculating magnetic moment. One question can be asked on this: to calculate magnetic moment is a 2-mark question. Magnetic moment is given by the symbol mu, which is n into n plus 2 square root, given by the formula n into n plus 2, and this is given by the unit Bohr magneton. It is Bohr magneton. Bohr magneton, that is a unit of magnetic moment. We will have an example in copper sulphate. Copper sulphate has copper in the 2+ state. How many unpaired electron it has? It is 3d9 system. 3d9 in the sense, count the number of unpaired electron: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How many unpaired? Only 1 unpaired electron. So in this case n equal to 1. Now substitute in this formula. So mu should be equal to n1 into 1 plus 2 square root. This is 1 into 3, that is square root of 3. Square root of 3 is around 1.73, you get Bohr magneton. This is how magnetic moment can be calculated when any salt solution is asked. If it is n2, n is 2, you have to substitute here and get the answer. Okay. So from this we can find, higher the number of unpaired electron, higher the value of n, more is the magnetic property. Paramagnetism increases with increase in the number of unpaired electrons. Okay. That is regarding the magnetic property, which was the 7th property. We will move to the 8th property. This is regarding catalytic property of transition elements. If you see the catalyst, most of them are from D block. Is it? Say some catalyst, example for catalyst, you have seen nickel as the catalyst in some of the examples, platinum as the catalyst, iron as the catalyst, and some of the compounds of these elements like vanadium pentoxide, V2O5, chromium compound, Cr2O3. Most of them act as catalysts, and in all these you will find either the metal or the metal ion which are from the D block. Now what makes these D block elements to act as catalyst? That is the thing we are discussing here. This is the 8th property, catalytic property of D block elements. There are few reasons for D block elements to act as catalyst. One of the reasons I can say here is variable oxidation state. Do they exhibit variable oxidation state? We have discussed it before itself, right? These D block elements exhibit variable oxidation state. Now what makes these to act as catalyst with variable oxidation state? We will take vanadium pentoxide as an example, where it is a catalyst, acting as catalyst, vanadium pentoxide. Vanadium pentoxide can act as a catalyst in the conversion of sulfur dioxide to sulfur trioxide in this process. Vanadium pentoxide act as a catalyst. Platinum or vanadium pentoxide act as a catalyst in this process. This is a process. Let us see how vanadium pentoxide is oxidation process. In oxidation process, vanadium pentoxide is a catalyst. Vanadium pentoxide first combines with sulfur dioxide here, so that it forms vanadium tetroxide and sulfur trioxide. That is the first step. In the step 2, vanadium tetroxide V2O4 combines with another reactant, which is that oxygen, then it becomes vanadium pentoxide V2O5. If you see the mechanism, these are the 2 steps. In order to balance, you need this as 2 times. If this turns 2 times, all these will be turned into 2 times. Right? That is just to balance. Now, if you add these 2 equations, what you would get? Vanadium tetroxide cancels, vanadium pentoxide cancels, remaining are 2 sulfur dioxide plus 1 oxygen giving 2 sulfur trioxide. This equation itself, right? So, vanadium pentoxide is a catalyst which is regained at the end. All these properties, all these points are proved here. Now, what makes vanadium pentoxide to be a catalyst? Vanadium pentoxide has +5 state here, which changes into +4 here. Again, from +4 it changes into +5. Is it due to variable oxidation state of vanadium, where vanadium pentoxide is acting as a catalyst? Yes. Due to change its oxidation state, it can form an intermediate compound. Here this is called as an intermediate compound. This intermediate compound formation is easier than the formation of the product. Now, what is intermediate? If there is a reactant will turn into intermediate in the reaction, then intermediate will produce the product. This is a usual path of a reaction. Reactant to product formation takes more energy, whereas energy involved in the conversion of reactant to intermediate is very less. This is called as activation energy, EA. Activation energy for this process is very less. So, once intermediate is formed, it immediately decomposes into product. This is how the catalyst helps the reaction to proceed in some alternate path following lower oxidation energy, lower activation energy, right. So, as reactant turns into a intermediate with the lower activation energy, the reaction could turn into a faster reaction rather than directly converting reactant into the product. Hence, here variable oxidation state is one of the reasons for making such a compound of D block element to become a catalyst. This is one of the reasons. There are few more reasons. The second reason to give here is surface area. To say about the surface area, being solid, these metals being solid, like in the conversion of sulfur dioxide into sulfur trioxide itself, in the process, contact process, where platinum acts as a catalyst. Say this is the surface of the platinum. Assume that is a platinum which has uneven surface. Okay. Here, when sulfur dioxide and oxygen gas are passed, they get adsorbed on the surface because they have high surface area, especially in the finely divided state. These elements act as catalyst in the finely divided state. Finely divided state, they have high surface area, which helps the element which are the catalyst to get adsorbed on the surface. The catalyst helps the reactant molecule to get adsorbed on the surface. On the surface of the catalyst, as the catalyst or these D block elements have high surface area, the reactants get adsorbed on the surface. They come closer to each other. Once the reactant are on the surface, like here, these molecules are closer to each other. When reactants are closer to each other, their concentration increases on the surface and their reaction becomes faster. This is how platinum helps the reaction of combination of sulfur dioxide with oxygen, and once the sulfur trioxide is produced, it gets dissolved from the surface, it gets out of the surface, making the surface of the platinum available for further reaction. This is where the surface area counts, where catalytic property of D block element is considered. Higher the surface area, more is the adsorption. Here due to this, there will be higher adsorption, AD, adsorption of reactant molecules, of reactant, causing higher in the concentration of reactants on the surface, making the reaction faster than the reaction which is uncatalyzed. So, this is the second reason that we can give for the catalytic property of transition elements. Then there is one more example to be seen based on variable oxidation state itself, like the conversion of iodide reacting with persulfate S2O8 to form iodine, I2 with the SO4 2 minus, this reaction. If you balance it, that will be 2 times and it's 2 times. This is catalyzed by iron 3 plus. Ferric ion catalyzes this reaction. D block, ferric is from D block. Okay. Now, let us see how iron acts as a catalyst in this. This is the overall reaction. The first step of the reaction is iron first combines with the iodide, so that it converts it into Fe2 plus and iodine. To balance this, this should be 2 times. When you balance the equation, take care of the charges also. 3 plus 2 minus becomes plus 1, here plus 2. So, if you make this as 2 each, what it would be? 6 and 2, that is 4, 4 plus charge. Now, it is balanced, right? That is a step 1. In step 2, iron now is in the Fe2 plus state, combines with one of the reactant is taken in the first step, second reactant to be taken here, that is persulfate, S2O8 2 minus persulfate. Now, iron turns to be Fe3 plus back to original state and SO4 2 minus. Again balance the equation, charge here 2 plus, this to be 2 times to balance sulfur, oxygen, everything is balanced. The charge 2 plus 2 minus 0, but on this side it is minus 1. Make this as 2 each. Now 4 plus 2, this side plus 2, equation is balanced. You can cancel 2 Fe2 plus, Fe2 plus, Fe3 plus, Fe3 plus can be cancelled. What at the end remains? 2 iodide plus persulfate, on the right hand side iodine plus sulfate, equation is obtained, right. But how do you say that iron is a catalyst here? Iron is a catalyst in the plus 3 state, ferric, which is regained at the end. What made ferric to be a catalyst? Because it could be with the variable oxidation state. Iron could change from plus 3 to plus 2, again from plus 2 to plus 3. It made iron in the plus 2 plus 3 state as a catalyst for this particular reaction. It is oxidation of iodide into iodine by persulfate. Oxidation of iodide into iodine by persulfate is catalyzed by ferric ion. This is another example which shows variable oxidation state helps these D block elements to act as catalyst. There are 2 reasons we said, 2 more reasons we said, even including the surface area. That is the 8th property. We will have the 9th one, which is interstitial compound formation. Interstitial compound formation. What are interstitial compounds? The metals, assume a piece of metal. As you all know, in the metals, metal atoms are closely packed metal atoms. If those are spherical metal atoms, you can say their structure somewhat like this, closely packed structure. Okay, these type of closely packed structure metal has, where metal atoms are closely packed. But in between, you can observe there are some empty space, right? These are empty space. These are called as interstitial spaces. interstitial space, the empty space between the closed packed structure of the metal, interstitial space. Or you can even say vacant space. These interstitial spaces can be occupied by some non-metals, small non-metals like hydrogen or boron or carbon or nitrogen. Such type of non-metals if are present in the interstitial space of metals, then we called such compounds are interstitial compounds. So, what are interstitial compounds? In interstitial compounds, the interstitial site of the metal is occupied by small non-metals such as hydrogen, boron, carbon or nitrogen, any one among them. Then you call them as hydrides, borides, carbides or nitrides. These all are the examples for interstitial compounds. These are hydrides, nitrides, borides or carbides. What are these? If hydrogen is present in the interstitial site, we call them as hydrides. Nitrogen is present, nitrides. Boron is present, boride. Carbon is present, carbide. These are non-stoichiometric compounds. Non-stoichiometric compounds. What are non-stoichiometric compounds? For example, titanium hydride. Titanium hydride as the composition TiH 1.76. 1.76. Vanadium hydride has the composition VH 0.56. Now, these are called as non-stoichiometric. Or we can have the example of manganese nitride. Manganese nitride has the formula Mn4n, manganese nitride. Titanium carbide, like this. Here you can see none of the elements are in their oxidation state. It is not that nitrogen has -4, manganese has +1. No, they are not in their oxidation state. The reason is when these elements occupy such interstitial site, they do not give any chemical reaction. There will not be any interaction of electrons. These are just occupying the interstitial site. The vacant site that metal atoms have in between them are occupied by the small non-metal atoms without any chemical interaction. That is why there won't be any chemical bond formation, and these elements do not represent any of the oxidation state. Okay? So, they form non-stoichiometric compound. Interstitial compounds are non-stoichiometric compounds. These are few examples for interstitial compounds. Now, to say some properties of interstitial compound, are these chemically active? Once metal and non-metal both are present in the compound, are those chemically active among them? No, those are chemically inactive. To say about their properties, these are chemically inactive. Why chemically inactive? Because they do not involve any electron transfer or no chemical bond between them. No chemical bond. Instead, these small elements are occupying only the interstitial sites. No chemical bond formation. Then these compounds retain all the metallic property. Most of the metallic properties are retained, like metallic properties. They will have metallic properties like conduction, lustrous. These properties are retained in them. Metallic properties will be retained in them. But some of the metallic properties like melting point, their melting point is higher than that of respective metal. They increase their melting point, they increase their tensile strength. Tensile strength will be increased. Same as that refractory, they turns to be refractory substances. What is refractory substance? Refractory substance, this turns to be refractory substance, means it can withstand high temperature. Refractory substance is one which can withstand high temperature. Those are of course non-volatile substances. These all are the properties of such interstitial compounds. To say about some of the uses of these interstitial compounds, the interstitial hydrides. Interstitial hydrides find use as reducing agents, and these are even used as semiconductors. Interstitial hydrides are used as reducing agents and semiconductors. These nitrides are used in crucible. What are crucible? These are the reaction vessels which are used at high temperature. As one of the properties said here, they turns to be the refractory material which can withstand high temperature. These nitrides can be used as reaction vessels to be used at higher temperature called as crucible. Then borides, these are used in turbine blades. Turbine blades. And carbides are used in cutting tools. They turns to be hard, or their tensile strength increases so that they can be used in some high speed cutting tools. Borides are even used in the control rod of radioactive nuclear reactor. Rod in nuclear reactors. Those are some of the uses of these interstitial compounds. That is regarding the interstitial compound, the 9th property. Now we are in the last property of these d block elements, that is alloy formation. Tenth property, alloy formation. You know what are alloys, right? As is a mixture of metals, right? Alloys are mixture of two or more metals. These are usually homogeneous mixture. Homogeneous mixture of two or more metals, where atoms of one metal randomly distributes among the atoms of other element. What is this? If alloy is assumed, it has atoms of one metal, say these type of atoms of one metal, along with that atoms of another metal, like another metal is randomly mixed and it forms a homogeneous mixture. Such type of mixture is called as alloy. Now the question, why most of the alloys are only from D block? You have seen some alloy, give some example for alloys like iron. Iron forms alloys such as steel, chrome steel, molybdenum steel, etc. Copper forms brass, bronze, etc. These all are from D block, right? These elements are from D block. Aluminum also forms many alloys. Why D block elements are capable of forming alloys? One main reason is their difference in the size. We said in the beginning of this chapter, atomic size decreases but difference is less. Atomic size difference is less. The element which combines, or the metal which combines in order to form the alloy, should have the difference in the atomic size lesser than 15%. The difference in the atomic size should be lesser than 15% among the elements or the metal which combine to form the alloys, and that is satisfied by D block elements. All the D block elements among themselves have the difference in their atomic size less than 15%. So they easily combine in order to form the homogeneous mixture which is called as alloy. Now to see the property of these homogeneous mixture, the alloy has all metallic properties obviously because that is a mixture of metal, but the properties of this alloy is intermediate between the properties of the combining metals. The property of the alloy once formed will have the properties intermediate between the properties of the combining metal. Suppose A and B are the combining metals, then the alloy formed AB has the properties which is intermediate between A and B. But their melting points, tensile strength, these properties increase. They have high melting point than the corresponding metal, they have high strength, tensile strength than the corresponding metal. Those are the properties of these alloys. And this covers the D block element chapter. Now we have to move to the F block element.